Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Bruce Carr. I'm joined today by Andrew Burns. We're both barristers at Devereux Chambers, and we hope to demonstrate this afternoon that we know a little bit about trade union activities and the balloting processes that trade unions have to go through before they can take industrial action. We may prove to you that we don't know very much at all. The first thing we need to put right is you'll see that the title of this talk is Trade Union Bill plus Certification Officer Power Changes. We are nothing if not up to date at Devereux Chambers because the bill is no longer a bill. It received royal assent on the 4th of May this year, although it's not yet been brought into force, and the jury is out, or at least the government is out, on exactly when that process will happen. It's been described as a very controversial piece of legislation. Would you agree with that assessment, Andrew?
It's probably one of the most controversial pieces of employment legislation we've seen in the last decade or so. Certainly one where it went between the House of Lords and the House of Commons with some switcheroos right at the last minute. And we'll tell you later about how on the 24th of April it looked as if the Act was going one way. By the 4th of May it was going the other direction.
But perhaps not quite the beast that certainly the trade unions thought it was going to be. It was described by the trade union movement as being an exercise in settling old scores. It was heavily criticised by Liberty, certainly in bill form, as being something that fundamentally changed the delicate balance that needs to exist industrially between employers and trade unions. But it's, as I say, it's not perhaps quite as bad as it looked for the trade unions. Again, would you agree with that, Andrew? Or?
Well, certainly we saw a very big cross-party movement to water down some of the parts of the bill. It may be that some of the bits of the bill were held on to tightly by the government, and you'll see that we'll describe how in some areas really what the government had set out to do back in 2015 is what they've done in the bill as it stands today as an act. But in other areas it's been watered down to a very significant extent, such that we see that almost that the purposes of the original bill are not really there in the act as it stands now.
But nevertheless, we still pose the question, is this a democratic development or an anti-trade union law? We're going to pose the question, but we're not going to answer it. We hopefully will throw out a few ideas about what we think about how the Act will work and how the various changes that have been brought in will impact on the role of trade unions and the way in which they get their members to take industrial action. But I think the answer to that question is not only one that we can't answer, but I don't think anybody can answer until we actually see how the changes pan out in practice. But perhaps the place to start, certainly for those of you who don't do a lot of trade union work, is what is the existing legal framework? And I suppose the existing legal framework now includes the new Act, but I'm going to talk about the framework as it existed immediately prior to the 4th of May of this year.